I'm Keith Bockwoldt from Township High School District 214. We're located in Arlington Heights, Illinois, right outside of Chicago in the suburbs. We have 12,100 students in our enrollment, and we have 6 comprehensive high schools, 3 special program schools, a very large community education program that we serve, and a district office. We're really taking the world and collapsing it into the classroom nowadays, and I think that's really important for our teachers and our students to see the value of really what's happening now with this truly interactive content that is more up to date and more real time than a traditional textbook has been for all these years in education. To give you a little idea where we're at in the digital transformation, as I call it, is we have 75% of our students with iPads, and we started back in early 2010 with a very innovative program that we call the Flip Deployment. It's kind of like Flip Learning, but in this case our teachers have chosen a device. They've looked at many different tools that were out there, and over the years selected the iPad as the best instructional tool. So we've gotten to a point of 75% of our students having a device. We have 700 of our teachers out of 900 teaching staff that have a device. We'll finish it off this next year. So we're really coming to a penetration point of being a full one-to-one in our district. As we look at this digital transformation, it's not just these devices. We've reduced paper, we've reduced print, we're reducing printers, we're moving to digital forms in the district. We have a very robust learning management system. We don't allow printing on the iPad, so the hand in and hand out is now done through the LMS. And we're really looking and focusing more on all digital resources in the district, not just the instructional pieces, but operationally. What can we do to reduce all those ancillary expenses that come along with day-to-day operations in any school district? We do allow students to bring their own devices to school, primarily if they want to bring their own iPad. In a high school environment, typically kids will bring their phones anyway and a laptop. We do allow them on the network. They just have to sign off on our responsible use policy, as we call it. So they do understand that they're bound by still district policies while they're using the devices. So we don't limit it. I really see it more of a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 environment nowadays. It's just not us giving a device, which gives us a little more, I'll call it control from a standpoint or perspective of teachers have a consistent platform to use that we can troubleshoot as well on the back end. And with the educational apps, we can deliver better content with one consistent platform. So we're not a true BYOD district, but we do allow students, we don't prevent them from not bringing devices in. When you look at budgets in school districts, you really have to look at being creative and looking at alternative ways to be able to fund things. In our case, it was really a simple reallocation of funding. So we've had 6,300 desktop computers in the district. Now we've reduced the general purpose labs for mobile devices for kids. Also, when you look at word processing programs, some of the bigger ones, like the Office Suite, we'd have that on every computer. Well, now we're using Google Apps for Education, which is free. Reallocation of those funds. Along the way, too, in the last 2 years, we've had a significant reduction in purchasing traditional textbooks, which has allowed us to move to this digital space. And there were a significant amount of funds the last 2 years that were provided to my budget to support the hardware of the iPad. So it's really been a reallocation. We haven't spent any new money. We haven't had to go out for a referendum. We haven't had to assign a fee to this program at all. So I think what has to happen in school districts, they really need to look and be creative of not doing the same thing they've always done before. You can't sustain a desktop platform and having all these laptops and carts versus having mobile devices nowadays. You have to look at what that transition looks like and start planning for that. And not always spending the money where it always was before, looking at transitioning those funds and reallocating those budgets. And that's how we've been successful moving forward to where we're at right now. And to give you a little background, this is our 5th year of implementation. We're moving into our 6th year. So it's not also something that happens overnight. Some of the things to think about when you're looking at going digital is first looking at your preparedness of your teachers and really where your strategy is and philosophy is where you want to go in the district. In our case, in 2009-10, the publishers weren't keeping up fast enough moving to digital content and curriculum. So our teachers started creating it anyway. So they started down that path. We also had our instructional materials adoption cycle where it specifically stated that we have to look at digital alternatives first before we buy a traditional textbook. So that we started down the path of reviewing digital materials, but publishers just weren't really moving fast enough for us. So teachers started seeing all this more relevant content on YouTube and CK12 books and then Khan Academy and all these different resources, and they started pulling these together. Now, not only that, with the iPad and the advent of iBook Author, teachers started adopting that really quick and started creating their own content and curriculum within iBooks. So that spread across the district, and we had our professional learning communities were getting together in subject content areas and creating this great digital curriculum that they're sharing between buildings now. So we really have what I would call a hybrid approach to digital curriculum, because at the time, and still today, there's not any one publisher that meets all the needs of all our teachers. And we know that our teachers that are in the classroom, they're the best ones to know what content they need to use. And of course, at the high school level, we're teaching the college and career readiness standards. So, they know the standards they need to meet. They pull the content together. They create this great content with iBooks. We do have some other content that we have purchased from other publishers as well. But at least now we're saying to publishers, if we're going to buy content, it needs to be updated. And next year, I don't want to pay for a new copy. I want to get the updates to come along with it. Some of the barriers and some of the challenges that come along with this is one of the things I mentioned, the publishers weren't keeping up with everything quick enough. And also, when you look at the adoption of one-to-one devices, you have to have a certain saturation of devices ready to go. In our case, what we said to the teachers, and the superintendent was very clear about this, the teachers have to have a digital curriculum in place within the first year if they go with an iPad. So he set the stage and he said, we can't continue to do the same things we've always done. We have to transform instruction. And that's exactly what happened with our program. So it really worked out effectively, and we're still working through finalizing getting rid of the rest of the paperback books that we have in the district, but we're still going to be a couple years out to finally finalize that. And as we continue to ramp up with more iPads, we're seeing more of these great texts come out from subtext from Google sells them now. It used to be, I believe, Renaissance Learning used to sell them. And they're these really great interactive texts where the kids can collaborate together, and the teachers have just really adopted this and really ran with it. And we're getting so much, I call it pressure at the district level for the teachers for us to buy more of this content for them, that I think it's a great place to be. That teachers that are placed that they want to use this digital curriculum. They don't want to teach with the traditional textbook anymore. So I think a lot of the barriers have been overcome, but still I think a lot of school districts are challenged and trying to figure out how they can fit a digital curriculum strategy into place in their districts. But it has to start out with the philosophy and what you want to do, and also having the foundation built for your one-to-one device program. So talking about some of the early adopters and kind of how we've moved things along in our district, it really happened more organically. So we started off with this program with teachers adopting the devices and putting it for these pilots. And we had what I'll call the more seasoned teachers who had their feet in the sand that didn't want to move in that direction just yet. So what happened, though, was really pretty cool. You have teachers that were teaching in the classroom, and then these other teachers were seeing the great things they're doing with the digital content and curriculum, the way they're delivering it with the iPad. We have Apple TVs in each classroom, so you have that interactive whiteboard right in the hands of the kids now, and the teachers are seeing this. So the other teachers that were a little bit reticent or reluctant, now we're saying, hey, we want to give this a try. I've even had teachers that are getting ready to retire in the next 2 to 3 years come to me and say, hey, Keith, I really want to try this. How can I get one of these pilots? How can I get some iPads to make this happen? So it really happened organically, and it's really been a snowball effect in our district where you have those cheerleaders out there, the early adopters that were really running away with this, using the technology to its fullest extent. And then you've had all these other teachers come along just organically saying, hey, I'm seeing the great things that are happening here, and just adopting it. So we had our first year and second year pilot teachers that are teaching all our current teachers that get the iPad or devices, and they get together in summertime. They have workshops. They develop their curriculum as well. So whether it be purchase content, whether it be an iBook author or whatnot, they bring it all together and they start delivering, because they want to be ready before school starts. They don't want to even wait a year now to have that in place. So they want to start fresh with the LMS, Google Apps for Education, all the digital pieces that go along with that. The other piece of it is the student aspect. The students have really adopted it too, because they feel more organized. When I meet with students nowadays and ask the question, how do they like using the iPad? Of course, they like using it. It's a tool they may have had at home, or they've had access to something like it before, but it's been very different for them. They've been using for social media. They've been using for email, then gaming, obviously, but when they come into the school environment, they're using for learning. So what we found out, it takes about 30 days for the teachers and the student to get used to delivering the content and curriculum on a device. But once that happens, now we have teachers saying, I don't even want to use a textbook anymore. I do not want to go back to the old way of teaching as it was before. Don't make me do that. So it's really been exciting for us to hear that feedback from our teachers. And the other thing we do too is we get assessment data back from our teachers each year. So we look at our year-over-year results. And I just recently, this last weekend, I was compiling some data. I looked at the results, and to see that our freshman math class at one of our high schools, they went from an 88% success rate to 93% the second year with having iPads, and then the last 3 years they have had a 100% success rate because of using digital tools in the classroom. So to see those type of gains and just what's happening with this whole digital transformation, for me, it's been very exciting. I just met with some folks the other day, and I had a teacher that was a 28-year veteran, and she said to me, I will never go back to teaching the old way. I'm just re-energized. So when you hear those things, if somebody's been in a school district for that many years, to be re-energized because of the new way they're teaching, that's very exciting. So we talk a little bit more about personalized learning and what that means to our students. I consider teaching and learning a little bit differently nowadays, where in the day it was the teacher standing in front of the classroom and teaching the kids, and the kids would listen. Well, now it's the teacher moving around the room, and then I consider it a web of the kids learning and teaching each other and teaching the teacher, believe it or not. They're learning a lot of different things. So you're seeing this happen with all these tools, and our kids today, they're growing up with all these tools. And I always feel that if we're not giving them access to these tools at school, then we're losing them. And we've seen the engagement increase in the classroom. We've seen how these kids are exchanging ideas with each other. And we also allow the students to load whatever apps they want on the device too, because sure they could be loading a game, but you know what? They're finding apps and tools for themselves to help their personalized learning for themselves, and we don't stop that. We want to encourage that. So one of the things I would suggest to districts is don't lock down devices so kids can't install apps. Allow them to be creative. They want to be able to explore and find different apps. And actually, we have teachers that have come forward and said, give an assignment to their kids in class saying, hey, we want to find this one app to do this. And I'm going to break you up into 3 groups. You guys research and then come back in the next few days and then present on your app that we should use in class. So we're really allowing students to be part of that and to create their own individualized learning along the way. And I think they really appreciate that, because not every student learns the same. So the students have really been able to use the tools and really see some great gains that we probably wouldn't have seen before. We'll have like 504 students that are lower level kids that are succeeding now because they are more organized on the device. They don't have these pieces of paper, these calendars that they lose. And what's really exciting to know is that in a first semester final of a non-iPad class in biology for 504, students would have a 57% average. Well, with the first year of an iPad, they received a 69% as the average, so a 12% increase. Second year, it went up to 72%, years 2 and 3, 72%. So they had a 15% increase over the last 3 years. So, students are really seeing the advantages and feeling that they're more organized just by having the device. And the great part about this whole thing, too, is the real-time feedback in the classroom. So when students are learning and the teacher's working with them, they'll bring up a Kahoot or a poll everywhere right on the screen, kind of like the clickers. We had these clickers before, and I think colleges still use them. Nowadays, it's just an app on the iPad or going to a website. They put in the information, they answer the question, and the teacher can tell real time if students got one answer wrong, a majority of them got it wrong, they can go back and drill into that subject matter right away and address it with the kids so it help them understand the content. So students getting involved with this whole thing has been really helpful, and you really see the adoption rate and how much the kids appreciate having a device that they have 24/7 now. It's not just kept in the classroom either. So I would also encourage other districts to allow these students to take them with them and let them explore beyond the traditional school walls. And the other thing we have too is we've created these, at some of our buildings, what we call peer observation groups, where teachers will get together on their own, and then they'll go into a classroom of a teacher teaching with an iPad, and they'll just sit there and observe 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, and then they'll sit down later in the day or the next day, not evaluative. It's not in a typical ed association. Teacher is going to be evaluated on their classroom performance. This is a peer just observing and helping them with, did this work well, didn't it work well, here's some things maybe you can do a little bit better. So we have these peer observation groups where teachers are really collaborating together along with these facilitators in each one of the building, or coordinator as they're called in the day. There's something called the SAMR model, which helps teachers transition. It's not substitution where a teacher uses a pen and paper and now the iPad is the pen and paper. It's really about transforming the learning. So there's this model in place that we help teachers learn how to move up that model to what we call redefinition, to redefining the instruction with technology. Not just doing the same thing. I've got a book, but I'm going to have the book on an iPad. That's just substitution. We look at the augmentation and modification and redefinition. That's what SAMR stands for. Substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. So we help teachers move up that ladder to get to more of the modification, redefinition level. So everything really started to come together, I would say, in the 2011-12 school year to really make an impact on the district. And that's why I think when you look at our program, it wasn't always perfect, but while it wasn't perfect, it worked very well for us because we have the teachers' input, they adopted it, and we have a success rate now that is phenomenal. We haven't lost any achievement in the district at all. We always continue to have these gains, and it helped us continue to move along in this digital strategy now to have more of these digital tools in place. And teachers, it's really amazing for teachers to say, hey, I want to try this. I want to try this. And our board has said back in 2009-10, we want you to take risks. And we said, okay, some of the risks we may take may fail. And they said, that's okay. If you're not failing, you're not succeeding. So it gave us the ability to try some different things, the teachers to try some different things. And here we are today with a system in place that I call the flip deployment, which is the teachers that are steering the whole process. We've got all this digital curriculum in place. The whole district as a whole is moving into this digital space, and it's a place I never thought we would be. I've been in the district since 2004, and this is my 11th year in. And to be where we're at right now, and to sit at the district office as an administrator and see the success that the teachers have brought to the classroom, have brought to our students, and then we get to have these great conversations with the board it's a great place for us to be.